Hello.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the pod.
Happy to be here. It's sunny today where we are when we're recording this, so I feel alive today.
It is sunny. We're such princesses, I feel like, in Edmonton slash like in Alberta because we get a lot of sun, and I recognize that. Like I think Calgary's like the sunniest city in Canada or something. They
Oh,
get the most days of sun. Fun fact. Um, but we're such princesses. It's like gloomy for like 4 days, and all of us are like, the world is ending.
yeah, I feel I feel like the sun affects me more and more every year. I don't know if everybody else feels the same way, but even I said on my stories today, like more so as we get closer to the warmer weather, I feel like it's like it's very up and down how I feel based on the weather. Um,
I agree. I think like
um,
in the winter we settle into like it is winter, this is life.
mhm.
And then when we come into spring and we get like false spring and then it's winter again, that I feel like that hits the hardest because we're like, oh my God, the sun. We've like to an extent like accepted defeat in the winter. We're just like, this is my life. And then we're like, maybe it's not. And then we get extra sad when it goes back to being gray.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like it was gray for, like, more than a few days. I don't know for sure, but, like, I felt very and it was snowing and very windy, and I was
Mhm.
just like, "I am just not it. This is not it." Um, so, yeah, I feel like today, good day.
Mhm. You have a
Speaking
win.
of speaking of good days, do I have a win? I tagged along with a pal for their long run over the weekend. And initially, and she's an out of town friend. So whenever we only run together when she's in town, obviously. And usually we just try to kind of mesh our training plans together and be like, what are you doing today? Oh, I can do that or whatever. And so she had a long run to do. And she was like, it's supposed to be 90 minutes. And I was like, I can probably do 75. And she was like, "Yeah, yeah, whatever, like, you can peel off or, whatever." And, I ended up doing, like, the whole thing with her,
Right.
and we actually ended up having, like, the perfect 90-minute route, which I was very proud of. Um, love it when it works out like that. And, yeah, I was really, like, fatigued at the end, and I pretty much did nothing for the rest of the day, but I did it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and then and for all you, like, activity tracker people, my HRV did not get into the red. I rested and fueled and slept well and still green.
Good work.
So, yeah, that's my win.
Good work.
Take that, Garmin. Okay, I'm overreaching.
We love that. That's so long to run. My brain's like, "Haha, no." But we love that for you.
It's easier with a pal.
That's fair.
Not easy at all, but easier with a pal that you haven't really chatted with in a while. You can just like catch up.
That's fair. Yep. I guess that's the same. It's easier to like for me to walk longer when I'm with someone or on the phone or
Yeah.
whatever. I did see this TikTok that made me laugh. I don't run, but this girl posted a TikTok running and she was like, honestly, screw your music. She's like, you just gotta find a friend that is an absolute yapper. She's like, I just talked to my friend for an hour and 15 minutes. She's like, I don't think I said more than 10 words, but she kept me entertained for my entire run. And I was like, we love that.
Yeah, I feel like and sometimes when I'm running, I know I've talked about this before. I do my best thinking when I'm running.
Yeah.
So I come up with like things to talk about on my Instagram stories or posts or program ideas or solve my problems. And I sometimes when I'm running, I'll purposely like record stories because after I'm done, I'm like, "Oh man, that was like 10 minutes." Sweet.
We love that. Yeah, I like to post a story while I'm out walking too. It reminded me of this is a small tangent, but I used to work for a landscaping company in the summer when I was out of high school and then like into college. And we used to always joke there was this one property we cut grass for, and it had this like giant mound in the middle, and one person would have to cut the entire mound because we would have to like split up to like, it was like a condo property, so we'd have to split up, so one person would be responsible for the entire mound, and you had to like rake and cut it. So we used to always joke that we all did our best thinking on the mound, and like if anyone was dealing with a life crisis, they got to do the mound by themselves. And that's how one time I decided to break up with my boyfriend. They left me alone on the mound for like 2.5 hours, and I came out of it and I was like, yeah, I'm breaking up with him. That was the end of that. So you just made your life decisions on the mound by yourself.
I mean, yeah, I have done some really good problem solving on some long runs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know it's not for everybody, but do you have
Maybe
do you have a
raking,
win besides
maybe raking some leaves is a better fit than going for a run for people. But whatever works. I don't have any big wins. I was sick this week, so it was just like a little bit glum in my house. Everyone was going through it the last like 10 days. I would say we're going to take the win of like actually resting and actually like taking help, which is going to sound backwards. My mom listens to the pod. Um, so she'll be sitting there being like, yeah, but you didn't really take that much help. She's not wrong. But I tried my best of like letting, like my parents watched my dog one day because I was in no shape to be exercising a dog. I like let people make me food and like ask if I needed things and actually answered. And the hyper independent me usually doesn't do that. So it was nice to be like, actually, there is something you can do for me. So we're taking the win of like actually
yeah,
letting people help me while I was sick.
that is a big win. I think especially for you said it, hyper independent people. We don't ask for help.
I'm just like, I'm fine. I like can't breathe. My head's gonna explode. My body's 4,000 temperatures. I'm like, I can walk my dog. It's fine.
Like,
So,
no.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was nice and probably helped me not be sick for as long as I usually am. So it was nice to just have people being like, what do you need? Let us go do it. And I'm like, oh, it's a
Yeah.
crazy thing called support. That's weird.
Rest is so important
Yeah.
when
And
you're
we're
sick.
bad at it, but like we tried and it kind of worked. So we love
Yeah. Oh, we're so bad at resting. But yeah, I guess, well, both of us had wins in the rest department.
that. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. So today we're talking about broad topic, managing your expectations.
Yeah.
Um, Yay. And it's like not something that you probably want to hear. This is going to fall into our famous tough love category, probably. Because I think uh, a lot of people think, let's start like when people start training. I think a lot of people think that they are going to solve part of the problem just by hiring a coach. And I know that's a big mental win a lot of times, is, being like, Kate, I'm going to hire a coach. I'm taking control of this, or somebody else is helping me take control of whatever's going on. And we have these ridiculously high expectations. And then most of the time, I think people just don't want to hear that it's not going to happen as quickly as you think. And
Well, now,
that doesn't change no matter what kind of training you're doing, whether you're trying to get strong or lose some weight or lose some fat or train for a run. It's slow.
I also think it's not even always like managing expectations around results either. It's just managing expectations of like how much you're going to get done, how much you're going to implement, how much you're going
Mm,
to integrate, whatever word you want to pick. In the first couple weeks, first month, I think when people step into making changes, we live in that instant gratification. So our brains are like,
mhm.
hey, well, if I'm doing the thing, it better be done by tomorrow and I better see the results by Wednesday. Like it's like if I'm doing the thing, it all needs to happen right now. And I think a big part of coaching and even with yourself is just realizing that like it's probably not going to be that easy. It's probably not going to turn out that smooth. It's probably not going to integrate perfectly into your life. the first time you try to do it. So what are we going to do when things don't go exactly as planned? Do we
Yeah.
be like,
And
I'm done?
I think we can start by recognizing that like change is hard,
Mhm.
right? And so starting some new nutrition habits, starting a new exercise program, whatever the case may be, it's hard. It's going to be something that's different outside of the norm from your life. And it's not going to feel, not necessarily going to feel easy right away. Um, and so, which is why most of the time we start really small, right? Because we don't want you to feel overwhelmed. And then we get into this all or nothing cycle of, well, I decided I was going to do this. So I'm doing like new exercise program, new diet, new this, new that. And then all of a sudden you get extremely overwhelmed and you do none of the above.
Mhm.
So I feel like this is, and I mean, both of us are really good at this, at implementing, helping people implement the small, sustainable changes and then building on that.
Yeah, and I think it's hard though with certain people because small doesn't feel like enough. And that's one
Mm,
of the biggest challenges I think any coach works through with clients is like convincing ourselves that starting small does actually matter because I get a lot of people that come in ready to go and I love the excitement, I love the enthusiasm. But I promise you if we try to do it all in the next 2 days, it's not going to stick. But how are we going to work on convincing you that it's good enough to start small?
mm,
I think people tend to bail out too when they're like, well, this isn't enough, or this isn't doing enough, or I'm not doing enough, or whatever. We expect these like big changes and these big like things to happen within the first couple days, but that's not how it works. And I'm sure every coach has had the clients that come in ready to go, and then we hit one roadblock and they're like, see ya, I'm done. But like that doesn't get us any further ahead. I say this with all the love. You might as well have done nothing if you're going to bail out the first time something doesn't go as planned.
yeah. And I think this is exactly why um, us and most other coaches will have sort of a minimum commitment because it's not fair to us if you go through the intake process. We go through the process of figuring out what to do with you, where to start. We onboard you, we add you to our coaching apps, to everything else. We build a program, we deliver it, we do the calls, and in a week, you peace out. And it's like, first of all, you didn't even give it a chance.
Mhm.
And I always ask people, I'm like, I would just like you to give it like 3 months. I know that's a long time, but the first time I write a program for you, I don't know anything about you. Like I do, but I haven't, this is not, it's it's really hard when you're online and you're trying to picture how a person might move or things like that, and you're like, okay, now maybe now I've seen a couple of videos of you. Now I know where we're going to go with this. But like it takes more than a couple weeks of coaching for me to figure out where your plan is going to go.
Mhm.
And I know that's going to, you're going to be like, well, that, like, you should just know. I'm sorry. I do not have a crystal ball. I do not have like cameras in your life. I just don't. It's it's a little bit of trial and error. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like we have to figure it
Yeah.
out too.
And I don't think like people are probably going to hear that and be like, what do you mean? We're not talking like it's not often, I don't think, that we have to redo an entire program or like start from square one.
No.
It might be like, hey, you have this one movement in the program and it doesn't quite feel right for me. So we tweak it and change it out for something else. Like it can be that simple. But it also very much depends on how truthful you choose to be with us.
Yeah.
Because when we're doing intakes, we ask the right questions, you decide what answers to give. So
Yeah.
I've had clients in the past that you deliver a program and they're like, yeah, everything's wrong. And I'm like, well, it can't be. Based on the answers you gave me, I couldn't have missed that badly. And this is few and far between. But that also tells me you didn't tell me what I actually needed to know to properly build your program. And that's on you,
Mhm.
with all the love. We can only do our jobs based off of what we know. And we've talked about this before, but like a client coach relationship is exactly that. If you don't communicate with us and you don't tell
Mm.
us what we need to know, you can't expect us to be able to help you. So I think when we're stepping into something new, you have to be truthful with yourself first of like, what do I need? What am I looking for? What's working currently? What's not working currently?
Mhm.
And what do I actually expect out of this? Because if you're sitting there with expectations and that doesn't get communicated, how the heck are we
Mm.
supposed to help you get there?
Yeah, and I would say, like, one of the biggest things that our people are not 100% truthful about is how much time they have to devote to their workouts. They'll
Mhm.
be like, "Yeah, I can do an hour 3 times a week," when they really mean 45 minutes. And that 15 minutes makes a big difference because 'cause you'll be like, "Well, I can't do my entire workout. I've never finished a workout." And it's like, "Yeah, but you told me you had this much time."
Yeah.
And typically, honestly, if you tell me you have 60, I'm giving you 45 because you haven't been truthful. And the other part about that, what did you say that I was like, something went off in my head. This is the problem with having a brain that you know what? I know, like, I'm not to like diagnose myself, but man, do I have some ADHD tendencies of in being in a conversation and knowing what I'm going to say. And then it's my turn and I'm like, crap,
Sure,
I
I've
don't know what
done
I'm going to say. Um, oh, is it
that.
contagious, Jill?
Is it contagious? I just passed it off to you. No, but I do think this is a tangent on ADHD. Is it contagious? No. But once you discover you have ADHD, you'll
It's like
also recognize
all
it
you can
comes
do.
out. It comes out
All
a
you
lot
can do.
more around other people with ADHD because we don't have
Oh,
to mask our
it's like a
symptoms.
safe. It's like a safe
Our
space.
Well, because especially with females, we're really
Uh,
good at just, like,
yeah,
blending in, like, we don't really show our ADHD, we're not, like, the hyperactive, like, boys typically are, like, the hyperactive, can't
yeah.
sit still, fidgety, where females' brains learn how to mask that a little bit better, so they're just like, "I'm cool and normal, don't worry about me and my ADHD over here." But
That's
yeah, I
literally what
think, like
happens in my head all day long is, "I'm cool and normal, don't worry about me."
yeah. No, but I think even if you're not working with a coach, like, the first step is being truthful with yourself about what you
Ooh,
expect, what you want, how much time you have, how much
I
energy you
remembered.
have to put into it. Did it come back to you?
Yeah, it did. Um, I ask a really important question on my intake, and that is, um, 3 questions, actually. Have you worked with a coach before? What was your experience like? And what are your expectations of me as a coach?
Mhm,
Because I feel like if you have this idea in your head of how coaching works, but that's not how my coaching works, we're going to have a problem before we even start.
mhm,
And so, and I do like to hear about other people's experiences because I've had people be like, "Yep, it was great," or I've had people be like, "Yeah, I was just training in person, and this coach was, they were like chronically canceling our appointments or rescheduling, or our like schedules just didn't line up. So now I'm going to try this online coaching thing because I feel like that'll be better for my schedule." Or I have heard some things of things that other coaches have done, and I've been like, "Okay, wow." And at least I know, like, you're feeling maybe a bit, what's the word? You're feeling a bit, like, unsure about coaching, or you've had a bad experience, and I'm like, "Okay, now we need to have a great experience." And if they say, like, "My expectations are you to be really responsive and not cancel appointments," I mean, I don't do a heck of a lot of that anyways, but sometimes we have to rearrange things. Um, but I know that, like, this person is gonna be like, "Man, if they cancel on me, like, twice in a row, that's it." Right?
mhm.
You've already lost them. Not that I do that, but, sometimes.
No, I think it's important on both ends to understand expectations. And like I said, even if you're not working with a coach, like what are you expecting from yourself? Are you expecting to, like, starting next week, I work out 7 days a week? Are you expecting that
Mhm.
starting next week, I don't eat sugar anymore? Like, what are your expectations with making these changes, and are they actually realistic? Because I'll tell you, if it's either of those two things I just said, you're done before you even start. You're not doing either of those things.
Yeah, I do love when people are like, "Oh," and I always ask, like, "Is there any exercise that you hate?" Because if it's something like, I don't know, someone's like, "I hate burpees," I'll be like, "Okay, that's fine. Like, we don't ever have to do them if you don't want to." Um, or I don't know. Even if they're like, "What exercises do you like?" If somebody really likes doing hip thrusts, it's not my go-to exercise to program, but if you really like it, yeah, go ahead, do them. Like, it's fine, right? I'm not gonna be like, "Well, actually, I don't really like to program hip thrusts." I'll just be like, "Cool. Yeah, let's do them. You love to do it. Let's do it." Because if you like to do something, then you're probably gonna want to exercise more,
Yep, I'd rather
right?
you have a couple movements that you absolutely love
Yeah.
than be dreading every single workout. If you had to give someone, like, 3 things to work on when it comes, like, setting
Um,
expectations, where would you tell them to start? Outside of coaching, like, they wanna start doing something on their own,
yeah.
where would they start?
I would say step 1, um, look at all the good things that you're already doing, right? What's super easy right now? Do you Are you really good at having your water bottle with you and drinking water? Because that's a great start, right? And then whatever those things are, so I would say maybe pick a couple things that you're doing really well. And then the next thing I'd say would be to look at those things and where can we build on those things that you're already doing. And then I would say probably the third thing is like, what's something that you wish like that you would want to do really well that's not going so well? And how can we start small with that one thing first?
Mhm,
Um, because for me as a coach, I need to see you have lots of little reps of success and lots of little wins because that'll put your confidence through the roof. And then once you've got all those things happening and you're feeling really great, you're like, man, I actually can do this. Then we can do some harder things. But to start with all the things that aren't going well, you're just going to feel bad about yourself. And then if you miss a day or if something comes up, you're going to feel worse. And you have no confidence reps to back it up.
mhm.
And that's where we lose people is they don't have any reps of confidence and we try to challenge their confidence in themselves and then they fail. And then
Mhm.
they don't come back.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you can do that with yourself too, like, where
And I would say that is those 3 things can be applied to nutrition, strength training, habits, all those things. That is a broad thing. But anyways, go ahead.
yeah, I would agree. I think I usually get clients to be like, "Hey, where do we feel really confident? Where do we feel not so
Mhm.
confident?" And I think a big thing, specifically with nutrition, is like tweaking and changing what you're already doing versus revamping your entire day. So if you already are like, "I eat breakfast every single day and I love that," great.
Yay. We
Can
also
we
love that.
can we increase protein a little bit with breakfast? Like, make a
Yeah.
small change within a habit you already have versus like, I
Yeah.
never eat breakfast. I'm not going to tell you to go eat 40 grams of protein first thing in the morning because you're probably going to throw up and then want to murder me. So rather than starting with like the things we're not doing, what are we already doing decently okay? And can we make it a little bit better? Um, Figuring out what you actually expect. Like, I think I've said this like 1,000 times by now, but like, what are you actually looking to get out of these changes? Is it, I don't care what it is. Is it, I expect to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks? It can be crazy. It can be little. I don't care. But like, what is your brain telling you should happen when you make these changes? Because if your brain's telling you, like, oh, if I start eating breakfast, I'm going to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks, somebody's going to have to be the bearer of bad news, which is fine. But at least we got that out of the way before we're disappointed by not losing 20 pounds in 2 weeks. Um, Because if we don't set those expectations right off the start and realize that like that's probably not super doable, you're just going to be like, well, this sucks and didn't work once you don't lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks. So figure out what you're actually expecting out of making your changes. Figure out what you're already doing decently well. Can we improve it a little bit? And be realistic about what you actually have the energy for. Because, yeah, ideally, we would all strength train 3 to 5 times a week, eat veggies with every meal, have 30 grams of protein, walk every day, do all the things, but do you actually have the energy to do all of those things? And energy can mean like physical energy and also time. And like the effort you have to put towards it. Because if you don't have the space to do all of those things, we don't need to start there yet. Build that little by little and figure out what you actually have the time and energy for so that we're not jumping in over our head and then being like, I suck because I'm not doing all the things.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's, I mean, I feel like that sounds really simple, but if it were that simple, I mean, if it was that easy for everybody, you wouldn't really need us, first of all, and we wouldn't have people who come in with these giant expectations of what is supposed to be happening. But I also think that there's an element of we see people who are falsifying results all over the place, right? And I think that talking about that and being like, and if somebody says like, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks, my first question would be, do you think that is possible? And why do you think that's possible?
I had to unfollow. I'm not going to get too specific with this.
Oh,
I just realized I was going to get myself in trouble. um, I'm going to filter slightly. I had to unfollow someone who I technically should be following because they posted a reel that was like, if you want to lose 30 pounds in 30 days, here's 3 steps to do it. And I literally heard those words come out of her mouth and said, I'm out. But like
wow.
that's not possible. I don't
Now
care
I'm
what you're doing
now
unless
I'm
you're like,
dying to know who it
I'll
is.
tell you the full tea once we're
Okay.
not recording. I'm just not
Yeah,
gonna
please
get the
do.
specifics out there. But yeah, it's just like shit like that makes our jobs hard because then people come to us where we
Yeah.
actually help women make long-term changes and they're like, well, I this person on the internet said I could lose 30 pounds in 30 days. First of all, no, you can't.
Um,
Second of all, she's a liar. And third of all, doesn't mean you're gonna keep it off. Even if you figured out a way to
yeah.
lose 30 pounds in 30 days, you ain't keeping that off.
And yeah, and there's a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of scary tactics out there for
Like, that
sure.
sounds great. If you're somebody who struggled with fat loss, I understand why that hits home for you, being like 30 pounds in 30 days. I've been trying to lose 30 pounds for 10 years.
I
Um,
was gonna say it didn't take you 30 days to gain that.
yeah.
So, and like it's one workout, one meal, one, it doesn't make, yeah, God. I just
But, like, that's
sometimes
part
I
of
hear things like that and I'm like, are we still like this is bringing me back to like, remember when the Biggest Loser TV show was like the show?
Mhm.
And remember when we were like publicly shaming people for not losing weight for their team or like money? And then they'd have the follow-up show and they would come back and there'd be like 1 out of 10 contestants that are like still smaller. And we were but they did all that thing. Yeah, because they were in a fishbowl. They were given what? Subway sandwiches and endless workouts and cardio, and then Jillian Michaels is yelling at them, like, that would make me drop 10 pounds in an instant.
just the stress.
Like,
But, yeah, I think but
she's yelling at me, "Just drop it off."
yeah, that's part of the reason why managing expectations is so important. The internet does us dirty with a lot of
Oh,
that, of, like,
so dirty.
making it seem doable, and it's not, especially long term. But yeah, I think just being honest with yourself of like, what do you actually expect out of that is step one, whether you're working with a coach or just something you're doing yourself. Um, what do you need to get there? How much time do you have?
And I think you know what the worst part is? Is that it's coaches like us that end up being, like, a bit of, like, the bad cop
We have to
because
be the bearer of
we
bad news
have to
being
tell
like,
you the truth. And we're like, okay, listen, so that person, that's not true. I don't know why they're saying that, but that's not true. And I think like, you were just saying like that you unfollowed somebody who you're like, man, like I kind of like whether you look up to this person or you feel like you should be following them. If that kind of stuff comes across your feed, unfollow is great. Even better is a nice block.
it was an instant, like, I
Um,
literally, like, hurt it showed up on my page, and I was like, "Huh?" And then when you, like, scroll away and you scroll back because 'cause you're like, "Did I just hear that properly?" And I was like, "Oh, no, you're gone. See ya."
yeah, like I the unfollow button is so powerful. And if it happens to be like TikTok or something and you just see that just because, I feel like the block button is super super helpful because you'll just forget that they exist. And if you know that something is really like far-fetched or it's like hurting your self-esteem or your like it's not helping your journey, go ahead and get rid of that person from your feed. Like just get rid of them because um you'll see it over and over again and you'll be like, I know this is not true. I know this is not true, but eventually it weighs on you, right? And you're like, maybe it is true. But I can promise you it's not.
Yeah.
If it seems too good to be true, it is absolutely not true. Um,
Always.
yeah,
But, yeah,
man.
if you have to give any final notes on managing expectations or, like, a tip when you're starting something new, what would it be?
Honestly, set the bar low.
Like, keep
That
your
is
goals, but,
lower the
like,
bar, like yeah, but lower the bar, lower the barrier of entry. Give yourself something to have small wins about. I guarantee you that is the key to success. Small wins.
I always tell my clients, like, "Keep your goals, keep them there, do your thing, but let's be flexible in how we choose to get there. If plan A doesn't work, we'll think of a new plan. If plan B
Yeah.
doesn't work, we'll revisit plan A or find a new one. Like, keep your goals, do your thing. That's what you want. I love that. Understand why you want it. But let's be a little bit flexible in how we choose to get there so that if the first plan doesn't go perfectly, we don't shit our pants and jump ship. We have other options to getting there."
And I would also just add, like, if you're working with a coach, trust the process.
And also communicate. If you don't like something, if something's not working, if you're like, "This isn't what I wanted, needed, whatever," tell us, but also tell us why. Being like, "Yeah, this isn't working," and then just being like, "Yeah, but I don't know why it's not working," that means we need to work on our self-reflection a little. Because I can't tell you why it's not working if you don't know why it's
Yeah.
not working.
And truly, like, as an online coach, like, if I give you a program and you just sort of check it off on the app, you don't send me any feedback of I lifted this much for this many reps. There's no videos, there's no anything. There's just a check mark. And then you tell me that it's not working. You haven't really given me anything to help you with.
Mhm.
All I can see is a check mark and I just assume that it's going well.
If we
But
don't hear
if you
anything,
write, yeah, no news is good news for
we're like, "Oh
us.
my god, you're killing it." Then you're like, "Yeah, I haven't worked out in 3 weeks. I've just been checking it off anyway." So it's like, "Okay, we probably should have brought that up." Cool.
Okay, now you're just lying.
Yeah. But
Like,
yeah. And yeah, just being truthful
yes,
all around.
basically, the more you give us, the more we can give you.
Yeah, and
I
apply
have
that
people
to
who send
yourself.
me videos every week, and every workout, there's videos attached, and that's cool, and I have people who send me nothing, and I'm like, "Okay, that's cool too," but if you don't give me anything to give you feedback on, you're not gonna get feedback. You'll
Yeah,
get a
I
thumbs
have
up,
clients that very much just go and do, but those are clients that have been with me for a quick
and
minute,
that's
so they're just
fine.
like, "I'm good. See
Yeah,
ya."
I have lots of really independent people, and I have lots of people who are a little more dependent on the feedback, and I enjoy both for different reasons. Some people, even if their form's really great, I'm like, "Oh, I can hear you watching Gilmore Girls in the background. Cool." Like
Yeah, yeah, but
or
if
their
you
kids are
need
talking in the background, like
yeah,
but
the
yeah,
more you give your coach, the better, the more you give yourself, the
yeah.
better. Just, like, check in with yourself, your coach, whatever you're doing. As always, if you need support with that, like if you're like, yeah, I've tried, it's not working, we would love to help you figure out why it's not working, set some realistic goals, do all the things. If you have questions, comments, concerns, you want some one-on-one support through the pod, as always, you can find us over on Instagram at Lattes and Lifting Podcast. You can also find us on YouTube if you want to see our lovely faces. If you're new and you're like, I don't know whose voice is who, YouTube will tell you
Check out a
exactly that.
YouTube episode.
And then as always, you can find me at coachjill.april on TikTok and Instagram.
And you can find me at JLuck Fitness, and you can find the pod at Lattes and Lifting Podcast.
And we will catch you guys next time.
Bye.